From September 15 to October 1, 2000, the Sydney Olympics electrified the world. Nearly 200 nations and more than 10,000 athletes gathered for competition, unity, and spectacle. Stunning venues like Stadium Australia hosted record-breaking performances. The opening ceremony dazzled millions with its fireworks and cultural celebrations. But the game's most emotional moment came when Kathy Freeman, an Aboriginal athlete, lit the Olympic flame and later won gold in the 400 meters. Sydney's flawless organization and joyous atmosphere earned it the title of the best games ever, symbolizing global unity at the dawn of a new century. On January 1, 2000, as fireworks erupted over Sydney Harbour, the iconic Harbour Bridge blazed with a single glowing word: eternity. The display honored Arthur Stace, a reformed alcoholic who spent decades chalking the word across Sydney's streets in a personal act of faith. Broadcast worldwide to billions, the image of eternity glowing above the harbor became one of the millennium's most powerful visuals. It fused history, spirituality, and celebration into a moment of awe. For Australians, it wasn't just a New Year's spectacle, it was a haunting reminder of mortality, hope, and the enduring legacy of one man's message. In September 2000, Britain ground to a halt as furious motorists and truckers staged protests against soaring fuel prices, which had climbed above 80 pence per litre. Demonstrators blockaded refineries, choking supply chains, and leaving petrol stations empty within days. Supermarket shelves thinned, public services struggled, and panic buying swept the nation. The government, caught off guard, scrambled to restore order, while the military was placed on standby to deliver fuel. The crisis revealed the fragility of modern supply systems and the explosive power of protest when daily life and the economy depends on constant energy flow. On January 1, 2000, Britain unveiled the Millennium Dome in London's Greenwich Peninsula, a futuristic exhibition space meant to celebrate the dawn of a new era. Costing nearly £1 billion, it was the centerpiece of the UK's Millennium Celebrations. Yet, instead of glory, it became a scandal. Attendance was far lower than expected, exhibits underwhelmed visitors, and media branded it a colossal waste of taxpayer money. Politicians faced harsh criticism as the dome became synonymous with extravagance and failure. Though later repurposed into the successful O2 Arena, its opening year remains one of Britain's most notorious embarrassments. On January 1, 2000, the world braced for chaos. The Y2K bug, a computer flaw caused by two-digit year coding, threatened to cripple banks, planes, power grids, and even nuclear systems as clocks ticked past midnight. Governments and corporations spent hundreds of billions preparing for disaster. People stocked up on food and water, fearing collapse. Yet, as the new year arrived, nothing catastrophic occurred. Apart from a few glitches, life went on. Critics mocked it as hysteria, but others argued the massive preparations averted true disaster. Either way, Y2K exposed humanity's fragile dependence on digital systems. On March 26, 2000, former KGB officer Vladimir Putin was elected president of Russia, just months after Boris Yeltsin's resignation. Promising order after a decade of chaos, Putin's rise signaled a new era. His tough stance in the Second Chechen War, where Russian forces recaptured Grozny, established him as a decisive leader. Russians, weary of economic collapse and corruption, embraced his promise of stability. Yet the world quickly realized this was no ordinary president. Putin's leadership reshaped Russia into an authoritarian state, challenged Western influence, and set the stage for 2 decades of geopolitical tension that continues to this day. On November 24, 2000, scientists achieved a cosmic first, detecting solar neutrons from a massive solar flare. The extraordinary event, captured by international observatories, provided critical data on the sun's violent eruptions. Unlike light or radio waves, neutrons vanish within minutes, making their detection a technological triumph. Researchers hailed it as a breakthrough in understanding solar storms, which can disrupt satellites, power grids, and communications on Earth. For ordinary people, the science was invisible, but for space agencies, it meant new defenses against space weather. That November day, humanity peeked deeper into the sun's explosive, unpredictable heart. In September 2000, the world witnessed the largest diplomatic gathering in history at the United Nations headquarters, New York. Over 150 world leaders assembled for the Millennium Summit, determined to chart a better future for humanity. The result was the Millennium Declaration, a bold commitment to fight poverty, hunger, and disease, while protecting the environment and promoting peace. Out of this summit came the Millennium Development Goals, or MDGs, guiding international development for the next 15 years. The summit symbolized hope and ambition, a moment when world leaders pledged to transform ideals into concrete action for humanity's survival. On July 25, 2000, Air France Concorde Flight 4590 departed Paris-Charles de Gaulle Airport for New York. Moments later, disaster struck. A metal strip on the runway punctured the aircraft's fuel tank, igniting flames that trailed behind the supersonic jet. Struggling to climb, the plane crashed into a hotel in Gonesse, killing all 109 passengers and crew on board and 4 people on the ground. Once a marvel of aviation, Concorde became a symbol of tragedy. The crash shocked the world, raised questions about safety, and ultimately contributed to the permanent retirement of supersonic passenger flights. On March 17, 2000, tragedy struck Kanungo, Uganda, when more than 500 members of the Doomsday sect Movement for the Restoration of the Ten Commandments of God perished inside a church, burned alive in what leaders called a final act of salvation. Initially thought to be a mass suicide, investigations revealed a far darker reality. cult leaders orchestrated the massacre after defrauding followers. The chilling deaths shocked the world and rivaled the horrors of Jonestown. What was meant as a spiritual awakening became one of the largest cult-related mass killings in modern history, exposing the dangers of blind devotion. On January 31, 2000, Alaska Airlines Flight 261, a McDonnell Douglas MD-83, departed Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, for Seattle with a stop in San Francisco. Mid-flight over the Pacific Ocean, its horizontal stabilizer jammed due to maintenance failures. The pilots fought desperately, even turning the plane upside down in a last effort to regain control. Their struggle ended in tragedy as the aircraft plunged into the ocean off California's coast, killing all 88 passengers and crew. The crash exposed shocking lapses in airline maintenance and regulatory oversight, sparking sweeping reforms in aviation safety across the United States. On October 17, 2000, a high-speed train traveling from London to Leeds derailed near Hatfield, England, killing 4 passengers and injuring over 70 others. Investigations revealed that the crash was caused by a fractured rail, exposing severe neglect in Britain's privatized rail system. The tragedy forced Railtrack, the infrastructure company, into crisis, with mass inspections leading to widespread service delays and cancellations across the country. Public confidence in rail safety plummeted, and Britain's aging railway infrastructure was thrust into the spotlight. The Hatfield disaster became a turning point, reshaping rail management and safety standards for decades to follow. On August 27, 2000, a catastrophic blaze tore through the Ostankino Tower in Moscow, Russia's tallest structure and a symbol of Soviet engineering. The fire, sparked by faulty wiring, raged hundreds of meters above the ground, engulfing broadcasting equipment and trapping workers inside. Flames roared for hours, killing 3 people and plunging Russian television and radio into silence across vast regions. Rescue teams struggled to fight the inferno so high in the air. For Russians, already shaken by the Kursk submarine disaster weeks earlier, the tower fire became another shocking symbol of decay, corruption, and crumbling infrastructure in post-Soviet Russia. On July 7, 2000, in a historic announcement at the White House, scientists revealed the first working draft of the human genome. Flanked by President Bill Clinton and UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, researchers declared they had successfully mapped over 90% of the 3 billion DNA letters that make up human life. It was hailed as one of the greatest scientific achievements of all time. The discovery promised new treatments for diseases, personalized medicine, and deeper insight into evolution. Yet it also raised ethical dilemmas about genetic engineering, privacy, and the future of humanity's biological destiny. From February to March 2000, torrential rains and back-to-back cyclones devastated Mozambique, unleashing the worst flooding in half a century. Entire villages were submerged, and nearly 800 people died, while hundreds of thousands were left homeless. International attention focused on extraordinary rescues, Most famously, a woman gave birth in a tree as helicopters hovered above, saving her and her newborn. Relief efforts poured in, but the floods left deep scars on one of the world's poorest nations. Mozambique's catastrophe was a stark reminder of the deadly power of nature and the vulnerability of those living in its path. On September 26, 2000, tragedy struck the Aegean Sea when the MS Express Samina Ferry, carrying nearly 500 passengers, slammed into rocks near the island of Paros. The collision ripped the ship's hull, sending water flooding in as chaos erupted. Lifeboats were mismanaged, alarms failed, and within minutes the vessel sank. At least 80 passengers drowned in the cold waters, many tourists returning from holidays. Public outrage exploded when investigations revealed reckless navigation and poor safety measures. The disaster became one of Greece's deadliest maritime tragedies, exposing deep flaws in the nation's ferry industry and its culture of negligence. On July 1, 2000, a stunning feat of engineering linked Copenhagen, Denmark with Malmö, Sweden, the Øresund Bridge. Stretching nearly 8 kilometers, the combined bridge and tunnel system instantly became a landmark of Scandinavian cooperation. Opening ceremonies featured fireworks and royal guests, celebrating a project that cost billions but promised unprecedented cross-border travel. The bridge symbolized not just infrastructure, but cultural unity, transforming economies and daily lives. Within hours of its opening, trains and cars streamed across. The Øresund didn't just connect two countries, it redefined the map of Northern Europe, creating a new regional identity and reshaping Scandinavian history forever. In November 2000, Karachi, Pakistan, hosted the inaugural Ideas 2000, the country's first international defense exhibition. Delegates from 35 nations gathered to witness Pakistan showcase military hardware, from tanks and aircraft to missiles and naval systems. The event stunned observers. Pakistan, often seen only through the lens of conflict, presented itself as a rising defense exporter and technological innovator. Deals were signed, partnerships forged, and international attention secured. For Pakistan, Ideas was more than an exhibition. It was a bold declaration of ambition, signaling its entry into the competitive global arms market and reshaping its image in international defense diplomacy. On December 13, 2000, chaos erupted in Texas when 7 inmates staged a daring escape from the John B. Connally Unit Prison near Kennedy. The fugitives overpowered guards, stole weapons, and vanished in a getaway truck. Their escape sparked one of the largest manhunts in U.S. history. During their 42 days on the run, the group committed robberies and, in Irving, Texas, murdered police officer Aubrey Hawkins. The Texas 7 shocked America, exposing flaws in prison security. Their capture in Colorado weeks later ended the spree, but the bloody escape remains one of the most infamous in modern U.S. crime history. On March 4, 2000, gaming changed forever with the Japanese launch of the Sony PlayStation 2. Fans camped outside Tokyo stores overnight, desperate to grab the sleek black console that doubled as a DVD player, making it revolutionary for home entertainment. Within hours, units sold out, sparking a frenzy that soon spread to North America and Europe. The PS2's graphics and library of titles, from Grand Theft Auto 3 to Final Fantasy X, cemented its status as the world's best-selling console, moving over 155 million units. Sony's creation didn't just define a gaming generation, it conquered living rooms worldwide. On February 17, 2000, Microsoft unveiled Windows 2000, its most ambitious operating system to date, targeted at businesses worldwide. The release promised improved stability, security, and networking, critical for the internet-driven future. Tech events in San Francisco showcased the sleek interface as Bill Gates hailed it as a cornerstone of enterprise computing. Millions of companies prepared massive upgrades, hoping to avoid Y2K-style crises. While home users largely waited for Windows XP, corporations embraced Windows 2000, reshaping IT infrastructure. Its launch signaled not just a new OS, but Microsoft's tightening grip on how the modern workplace would run in the digital age. In March 2000, a dramatic failure unfolded during the launch of a Zenit 3SL rocket from the floating Sea Launch Platform in the Pacific Ocean. Just seconds after ignition, the rocket veered off course before exploding in a massive fireball above the sea. The cause? A devastating software error that doomed the mission. Millions of dollars in satellite equipment were lost, along with confidence in the ambitious multinational project. The fiery spectacle, captured on live broadcasts, reminded the world of the razor-thin margin for error in spaceflight. It was a humiliating setback for sea launch and a sobering lesson for aerospace engineers.